The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
L.A. Straight up. Just go out to L.A. The new anthem. California Love Part 2. One time. To live in L.A. West side, west side, west side. To live and die in L.A., where everybody try to fatten their pockets. So many hustle for the cash, so it's hard to knock it. Everybody got their own thing, currency chasing worldwide through the hard times.
Well, there we are. Hello, hello, hello. God bless your community family, and welcome to Gang Talk with Sister Herron and our temporary co-host tonight, sitting in for Skipp Townsend. And I'm just going to say that Skipp, you know, as I've said often, that the more you give, the more they want. And tonight, Skipp is actually being acknowledged for his work with Second Call in trying to get former offenders real employment, and that's through construction. And so his organization has been so successful that they were able to help build a new Kaiser facility over in the Marlton Square. So tonight he's being acknowledged for the work that he and Second Call put into the construction of that site. So we're very proud of Skipp, very proud of the work that he's been doing, and excuse me, happy that he's been our co-host for quite a few years. And before we get started with our beautiful ladies that came here tonight to talk to you, I just want you to know that we passed our 9th anniversary of Gang Talk last week. We started June 4th in 2009, and as I said last week, the first show was in competition with the NBA and the playoff games, and in those days it was the Lakers and the Celtics, so I couldn't get any male guests to come spend 30 minutes with us on the radio, and that was some stiff competition. And that was the first 2 weeks of our broadcast, and the third week, the 25th, Michael Jackson passed. So wow. Gang Talk had a very rough beginning, but you can see God had a whole different agenda, because here it is in June 2018, and we're still here.
Amen.
Still here. And so blessed to be here, and really trying to find a way to talk about these things that are so important to us that we just don't seem to understand. So I want to start. What we usually do is thank our guests from last week. So I have to thank both LaWanda Hawkins and Dee Dee, excuse me, for coming in, because it's been a very tough month. And as I said, the mothers of our community didn't get to really enjoy May this year, because we had 3 15-year-olds killed 3 weeks apart from each other, and the last 2 were murdered first thing Mother's Day morning. So if you've been following us, you know that I took a break. I needed an emotional break, and after so many years, you have to understand, the sorrow doesn't change. No. The sorrow does not change, and so I looked. Barbara and I attended a very exceptional Mother's Day brunch on the Saturday before Mother's Day.
Well, Francis was with us too.
Were you there too?
Yes.
Bless your hearts, because it was exceptional.
Yes. And
the hardest part of that emotional gathering was the new members, yes, the new mothers that were welcomed in, and that was heartbreaking to see that there were over 20, well over 20. I was just so shocked I didn't want to count. But it was a substantial number for me to say to you, family, we're not paying attention to this like we need to. So that's going to be the gist of our conversation. June has been, I know it's Father's Day Sunday, yes, but Gang Talk gave June over to the mothers.
Yes.
All right, so.
And we appreciate it.
With that being said, I want you to introduce yourself, starting with our sit-in co-host tonight.
My name is Barbara Pritchett. I'm a mother of 2 that was murdered. Actually, today, make 11 years for my 15-year-old son.
Yes.
He was shot on June 14th, 2007, and he lived on life support for 3 days. And actually on Father's Day is when we made the decision to take him off life support. So this is a bittersweet moment for me.
Yes.
Because I'm sitting here and it marks 11 years for my youngest son. My oldest son next month make 2 years for him.
Yeah.
So for the ones that have seen me and followed me, they know my story.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Not only 2 sons murdered, stolen from you, but your first baby was just 15.
15.
Just 15 also. And the truth is, family, as you're sitting here ignoring this, her baby child was killed by a 16-year-old.
Yes.
Okay? And that's the part we just don't seem to, we let the murderers just go on about their business as if they have some right to go home and bathe and eat and watch a Laker game. So before we get into that, let's introduce our...
My name is Frances Williams. I lost my son, Daniel Williams, in 2011. He was 18. It's really hard.
It's all right. Look, you're among friends, and we know how hard this is. And the problem is not enough of us are paying attention to the trauma that our mothers are going through. We care when the police kill our children. We're all over them. We want a new police chief. We want new police officers. We want them arrested and prosecuted. But we're still waiting for the murder of Hannibal. Okay, and the murder of Lamarion Upchurch and his friend Manye Jackson. All 3 of these 15-year-olds were killed in the presence of witnesses. And thanks to the councilman for the area, Marquise Dawson, I'm not too familiar with him, but they put up a $50,000 reward to catch Hannibal's murderer. And the shame is to this day, we don't know. We still don't have any information. Nobody wants to collect that reward. That's staggering. It's staggering. And it keeps the wound open.
Yes.
And the truth is, I don't want to say every time, but when something like that happens, it hurts our grieving mothers all over again.
It does.
Yes.
Just like it happened.
Yes.
Just like it happened yesterday.
Just like
every
it
time
happened.
we lose a baby.
Yes. It's a constant reminder. And I'm just so proud of you, Barbara, because you have been doing everything you can to work with your community and work with Kathy Wooten, and you guys have come together and doing extraordinary things at like the baseball game. I missed the baseball game, and that was with the Gentle Giants and the LAPD. Yes, and that was what?
June 2nd.
June 2nd.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And instead of being angry and vengeful, because we acknowledged last week, LaWanda and Dee Dee and I, that anger is a part of this.
It is.
Yeah, it's a part of this. And Barbara, I want you to talk a little bit about your baby when he was killed, because we showed up there. We couldn't believe that somebody was cruel enough to kill your 15-year-old coming off of a bus.
Yes.
We just didn't believe that.
Well, fortunately, it was Centennial High School graduation that day.
Mm.
And what I learned was in the past years that they had this rival that went on every year with the graduations, where 2 gangs would come together and they would have an altercation. So with that being said, the kids had all boarded this bus. And when they boarded the bus and they all got off the bus, the 2 cowards, I'll call it cowards, they trailed the bus. Mm-hmm. And when the kids got off the bus, they came through an alley and they opened fire at the group of kids. Well, my son wasn't in that group. He was probably about 10, 15 feet from that group. So he went trying to run to go into the parking lot of a church that was open. And as the guy made a left turn coming out of that alley, he kept shooting. And my son had became the victim. Yes. Even though the guy was shooting at the group of kids, which nobody got shot, but my son was the one that became victim. And so I remember that because it was so eerie, because the guy said, I watched him fall. I knew him. I played basketball with him at school. And so he went on to deny it and say he didn't do it, but then he told everything about my son.
You're talking about the shooter.
The shooter.
The shooter knew your son and played basketball with him.
Went to school with him. They played basketball at the school together on lunch break, PE time, everything.
Right.
You know, and it was just very sad, because when he went back and he told his sister, he said, I watched him fall. You know. So,
and he's a 16-year-old. 16-year-old. Already lost.
Life
already lost.
Life already gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, he's in state prison, and he was sentenced to a 65-year life sentence. 65-year life sentence.
As a juvenile.
As a juvenile. Well, no, not as a juvenile, because he was charged as an adult.
That's right.
He was charged as an adult.
That's right.
So, you know, and that's the sad part to it, is because we're losing our children to the streets.
Yeah.
But we're in the percentage of the time, those shooters are babies themselves.
Yeah.
And
some of them are.
Yeah.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
not all of them. Because you know what? The sad reality for us, and I'm going to mention our little 5-year-old Aaron Shannon. You remember this child. It was Halloween a few years ago, and he was in the Spider-Man outfit, ready to go trick-or-treating with his dad and his grandfather, when these men came down the alley. And the sad reality is the older man that killed Aaron, but he was escorted by an 18-year-old that I'm assuming the elder man was showing the 18-year-old, this is how you do this. And so that's a scenario that's played out in several occasions, as in Kashmir James killed Christmas Day 2010. You should remember that case too, family, if you're paying attention, because she was murdered in front of her 3-year-old daughter.
Oh, wow.
On Christmas Day. Okay, and she was not the target. But here again, the elder, the shooter was an older man. He had two young people with him. I believe the second one was something like in his early 20s, no older than 23. And they had a 16-year-old in the back seat with them.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so the elder is showing the young and the teenager, this is how you do it.
Right.
You see, so when Hannah Bell, we had that press conference for Hannah Bell's murder, and they offered the reward. I've never seen so many shot callers and OGs in the same place as that surrounded us that morning. And because they came forward, I was expecting we're going to get some justice here, because that's what they did when Tevin Price was killed on Florence and Crenshaw behind the red tennis shoes.
Right.
Killed in his mother's presence, the same way Hannah Bell was killed in front of her mother. You know, the neighborhood at Florence and Crenshaw turned their backs on the shooter. Turned their backs on him. We have nothing to do with this. We didn't condone it. We don't support it.
And that's the thing. You know, I feel like that a lot of times when that happened, that's what needs to take place. The community do need to turn their back on these shooters, because if we don't eventually wind up saying, look, enough is enough, it's just going to continue to happen. You know, that's the sad part to it. I was watching the news, and I seen where one young man lost his life because you know how we were kids coming up. And we called shots on who was going to get in the front seat and who was going to be in this one. So the two friends was calling shots on who was going to get in the front seat. And the other friend somehow wind up calling the shot, and the other one jumped in the front seat. And then I think it said the driver told the other guy to get out the front seat, let him get in the front seat. But it winded up, the best friend wind up killing the other one behind who going to get in the front seat. Sad.
That is sad. That's not just sad. That's ignorant.
Yeah.
That's ignorant. You mean you kill somebody over a seat in a car?
Exactly.
Really? Your life is so pointless and empty, that's all you have to do. And that's a sad truth about the cowards we're talking about, because these men that shoot 15-year-olds, shoot girls, shoot 3-year-old babies, they're cowards.
Exactly.
They are cowards.
And that's why I brought Frances, because I wanted Frances to share her story about her son. You know, her son was murdered, and to this day that case have not been solved. Have not been solved. And I know that somebody knows. Mm-hmm. Somebody knows something, you know. And so that's why I brought Frances in with me today, because I wanted her to be able to share her story, you know, because she's a mother that's in the same position that I'm in, you know. I mean, even though I have lost 2 children, but it doesn't make a difference whether there's 1, 2, or 3, you know. We as mothers, we still hurt when it comes to our children. You know, my heart goes out to any mother that falls into the position that we're in today, because it's not fair to us. It's not at all.
No, it's not. We raised our children for more than that, and I want you to talk about your baby. Tell us what you want us to know about this.
Well, it's still an ongoing case. Recently, we had talked to the Washington Post, me and Barbara. So the lady from the Washington Post called the detective, and since then he has not returned my phone call, because I also called him, and he has not returned my phone call, and they're just not doing their jobs, you know. They're just not doing their jobs. They looked at him as another little black boy taken off the street, gang member. But he was much more than that. He was a dad. His daughter was only 7 months old when he was murdered. Yeah. You know? And she gets to grow up without a dad.
Yes. Yes.
You know? My little son, who's 17, gets to grow up without a big brother. So it's just so total, you know, total loss for everybody, not just us, but the family, his friends.
Yes. Yes. You know, and I'm so sorry that you have to share that with us, but it's so important that you do, because it's the apathy in our people that allows the murder of your son to still be walking free. See, because, and I'm not saying we was joking, ha, but Dee Dee and Lawana and I sat here and guaranteed Skipp that we could find the killers of our children. The mothers could find the killers of our children, and Dee Dee was one that actually was out on the lookout looking at them.
Of course.
And God's the one that saved their life. God's the one that saved their life, because the mothers, you know, it's like the anger, the shock, the anger, it's like the sorrow. Yep, I've got all this in me, and you got nerve enough to still be out here.
Exactly.
So, as I always joke, but I mean it, that when they're ready to take the ride, I'll drive. I will drive. And I mean that, because we have to, and I said that after I say that, that's when we start laughing. That's when we start laughing, something to break that tension, because as we already discussed, each time there's a killing, it opens your wound.
Yes,
it opens your wound.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know, especially like me in scenario when the 3 15-year-olds got killed, somebody instantly called me and said, I seen that on the news. And when I seen that on the news, I instantly thought about you.
Thought about you. Yeah.
Thought about you.
Yes.
You know. And that's the sad part to it, is because every time a child's life is taken, it's a thought that goes back to any parent.
Yeah.
You know, I, you know, had the fortunate, was blessed to come into a relationship with Frances. I just met Frances last year.
Okay.
Didn't know nothing about her. It was a book that was wrote on my youngest son, and somebody gave her that book. And so she found me. And when she found me, she said that your story was my story. And that's what I tell people to this day. I say, your pain is my pain. Yeah. My pain is your pain. You know, every time you hear about a child life being taken, a mother relives. It's a wound that's always going to open back up. Even if the case is solved, you still, that wound still opens back up for us. You know, and that's the sad part to it.
Well, you know what? Folks need to understand that mothers are attached from the umbilical cord, okay? We gave those babies life.
Yes.
We gave them breath.
Yes.
We gave them everything that they needed to come out of our bodies intact.
That's the truth to it, because when I lost my oldest son here a couple of years ago, everything from that pregnancy came back.
Yes.
I thought about it, and it was just so funny because about 2 weeks ago, me and my oldest brother, we were laughing because when I actually went into labor with my oldest son, he took me to the hospital. And it was so funny to me because everything about that pregnancy I relived. But at the same sense, the same place he was born was the same place where they pronounced him dead. So I relived it from that very moment. When I got the call and said, DeAndre has been shot, I didn't know what hospital they was going to take him to. Mm-hmm. But then when I did get this call saying, get to St. Francis is where he was born. Mm-hmm. So the same place that life came in, life left out, And so you really do. My brother, like I said, we were laughing because he was like, you remember when I crashed you to that wall trying to push you into the hospital? We laughed about that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But in a sense, it's sad. It's sad. It's very sad. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, because they don't realize that. See, when they go out and they do that, they look at it and just say, oh, we got that person. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did get that person. But you also got a child. If a child was into that, mm-hmm. you also affected that mother. Mm-hmm. The whole family. If the father is involved in that relationship, you affected that father. Mm-hmm. You affected the siblings. You affected the cousins. I mean, everything about that scenario. Today I ran into a young lady that spotted me and said, hi, how are you? I said, fine, and yourself? She said, are you Poo-Poo's mom? Because that was my youngest son's nickname. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah. She said, I remember you. How you doing? Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm doing fine. But it was just so funny to her because she ran into me today. She hadn't seen me in Lord knows when. Right. But today make 11 years. Yes. And she ran into me. And the first thing she said is, where's he at? Can I go see him? And I told her where she can go find him at. It's the domino effect mm-hmm. that has on a lot of people. Yes. A lot of people. Yes. And they need to realize that. It's not about that,
Well, you know what? That's one of the reasons why I asked you to come. See, because Skipp and excuse me, at Hannah's press conference, Skipp called the fathers. He called the fathers out. He called the men out, and he called the fathers out. He said very clearly, it's our responsibility to protect the children and our daughters in this community. And he said the right thing. The truth is, we don't have enough of our people, not our men, and I don't want to just put a blanket on the men, because I work with a lot of men that are really working hard to change this. And what the apathetic don't understand when they judge the young and just say, oh, well, it's easy to let him go. Well, you've already judged him without accepting that he was born into this violence and may not know any better, may not have the family structure that you gave your children, exactly. Made sure that they had love at home, took care exactly. of them. Shooters have a twisted sense of reality. Most of them are cowards, and the other half are killing, and they don't even know why. Exactly. So why we're protecting them just doesn't make any sense to me. And since the majority of shooters are men, I thought it was very important that we give June, Father's Month, over to the mothers so we can speak something to the men around us sitting on their hands doing absolutely nothing. You have something you want to say about the killers of your baby? See, because you say he's lost. He's not lost. He was stolen from you. That's a real, like Vicky said, if I lost my keys, my car keys, I can find those. Mm-hmm. Your baby's not lost. Mm-hmm. He was stolen from you. Your babies were stolen from you. They were stolen from us. They were stolen from their siblings. They were stolen from their friends. And I'll be darned if I'm going to give the shooter a pass. Oh, that child got lost. No, he didn't get lost. Mm-hmm. You stole him from his family. Mm-hmm. You stole him.
You took him.
Took him.
You
Yeah.
took him. You
Yeah.
took him.
Well, I like stolen. See, because your baby's only 15, he had every right to expect to see his next birthday and the one after that.
Exactly.
So how do you just steal that life? How do you just take that life and then you get to go home and keep living what you think?
Exactly.
Can you speak to that? And I really don't want to put you on the spot. I just want you to know that you're among friends and that we know, without you having to say a word, what this is doing to you, what it's done to you. And so this is just an opportunity for you to try to tell other folks what we're missing here. Talk about the joy of your baby and his children.
My gosh, I could tell you so much about Daniel. He had the most beautiful smile. He would just light up the room. All the little girls were like, Daniel, And I was like,
A cutie pie.
Yes. I mean,
Yes.
he was just so lovable, talkative. He was like, oh, Mom, let's go to the movies. Oh, let's go do this. Oh, let's go do that. His little summer job money. Oh, when he was little, he was just so special. He stuck out. And all my kids are special, but I got so many memories with him. And that's the hard part, I would never expect in a million years for me to lose my son. I'm like, that don't make no sense to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't even understand it. And then the people who done it in the area that it was done, they're never going to find it because it was done in the Pico Union area where it's a lot of Hispanic people there. They don't want to talk 18th Street gangs. It's like, it's a never-ending battle, and I left that area to get him away from that, but he would still go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the whole him dying doesn't make any sense to me. It's just still unbelievable, and even though it's almost 7 years, it didn't change. It's like yesterday.
Yeah, it is.
And it's a scary thing. I don't want to always feel like this. I don't. But it's just an ongoing, it's going to.
And let me just say, it's okay. It's okay. You don't owe anybody your grief except him. And you don't owe anybody an explanation about why your heart is hurt. You just don't owe that. And anybody judging you that is out of line. People don't have the right to tell you, oh, it's time for you to move on. It's time for you to get over it. Oh, you have other kids. It's like take another direction. Nobody has the right to talk to you that way. Nobody has the right to tell you you've grieved enough. Nobody has that right.
It's no time period to it.
There's no
It's
time
no
period
time period
to it.
No. Not at all.
No.
Like I said, I'm literally today sitting here 11 years,
11 years.
And sometimes I get that effect to where when I feel like it's leading up to it, I can feel my emotions, they change, But nobody has that right. I remember my daughter, she was telling me when she was working out at the airport, and it had happened to her brother, and her boss at that time had told her, said, get over it. It was just your
Right.
brother. How you gonna tell me to get over my brother's death? You don't know the relationship that I had with my brother. That was my brother. Me and my brother, we did a lot of things together. But she right. Nobody has the right to tell you when you can get over your grief. Your grief is your grief. And it's just a pain that's there. But then at the same sense, every time you hear about somebody else, that wound reopens.
It reopens.
It reopens because you already know what a parent is about to go through.
Yeah.
You already know the things. I talked to Hannah Bell's mom, and I had told her, I said, it's no time period to it, Mm-hmm. I said, when you cry, you cry. Give yourself permission to cry. It's okay to cry, and don't hide it. Please don't hide it from your children. Don't hide it from them, because that was one thing that I tried to do with my first son. I tried to hide my tears from them, and then I had to realize, why am I hiding my tears from my own children? Because guess what? They hurting just as much as I am.
Too. Yes. And sadly, and it's not, I'm glad that there are those that care enough about the mothers to make a way to offer condolences and a sympathetic shoulder of understanding. But the biggest group that's neglected are the siblings.
Oh, yeah.
It's the siblings, the brothers and sisters.
Oh, no, definitely, for sure, because I know when that happened to my youngest son, like I said, everybody reached out to me. Mm-hmm. Hey, Mom, what do you need? I'm here for you. Here's a program for you. But nobody came up and said, here's something that's offered to the siblings. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the things that me and Kathy had made a pact, that we would find things for the siblings to do. Yes. And so when she does her annual event, she always acknowledges the siblings, And then when I started my support group, I tell my daughter, let's target the siblings, because the siblings are the ones that's often forgot about.
Yes. Overlooked. Yes, just not acknowledged, barely acknowledged at all, if they're even acknowledged. Mm-hmm. It's just the mom and dad.
And not even the fathers. The fathers don't even get it as much as the moms do.
You're right.
In reality, they don't, because they look at that the man is not supposed to cry. Mm-hmm. So they figure they the stronghold, it's more or less about the mom. Let's just get, make sure the mom is okay. Mm-hmm. But it's a domino effect with the whole family. Like I said, I have a little brother. That's a couple of years younger than from what my 15-year-old son was at the time of the death. And he growed up in the house with me all his life. And so when my oldest son got killed, it was just like this whole family just disappeared from him. And so we tried to get him to move on, but he's actually really stuck, Mm-hmm. And so I try to do little things with him, try to communicate with him and everything, to let him know that, just because DeAndre is not here anymore, just because, Devon is not here anymore, doesn't mean that the rest of us is not here. Yeah. We're still here with you, And you know what he told me? Y'all don't understand.
Yeah. And he's right. He's right. What I'm really trying to say, they were brothers. Mm-hmm. Okay, they were brothers to each other. Mm-hmm. And bless God, they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Mother. Mm-hmm. Nobody in this world would be here if it wasn't for the mothers, okay? Mm-hmm. So the mothers are a given, but here we're talking about the brother, that brother relationship. Mm-hmm. Who's going to talk to him about that hole that's in his heart? And that's the part that's been missing. Who's talking to your daughter about the hole in her heart? Mm-hmm. Both of her brothers missing. You see, and our churches have been negligent in this as well. I'm looking for, and I'm sorry, churches, to be church bashing so much, but people like me that are believers are looking for you to step up, step out, show some God faith, do it like Jesus did. Come find the lost, come help our grieving families, make a way for our children. These are the things I believe, if we're believers, we're supposed to be doing. And if these are the final days as the signs are looking at with this Antichrist and volcanic eruptions and earthquakes and all the other signs that are prominent right now, well, aren't we supposed to be trying to bring the lost to salvation?
Yes.
That's the bottom message. And what I see, and I've been seeing too much, is our church is doing the self-serving. No. The self-serving.
Well, I can't speak for all churches.
Not yours.
But I can speak for my church.
Yeah.
And I think that my pastor is a phenomenal
He is.
pastor.
I've met him.
He really tries to get out there and communicate with the community. He really is try to be there, especially for the young people.
Yes.
He's
different. There are a few.
Oh, yeah.
When I speak like this, I'm speaking about 77th Division. 77th Division is 12 square miles. That's all. It's just 12 square miles. There are over 400 churches in 77th Division.
All right.
But 77th historically has the highest homicides in the city.
Exactly.
How is that possible? And these are questions I used to ask my husband, a man of great faith. And it's like, how is that possible? What are they doing? Well, I want to say it doing. It's like, Leah, you know what? You need to calm down.
They're not focusing on what they need to focus on. And that's the kids.
Yeah, that kind of was my my dialogue then. And he just gets so frustrated with me. But I'd see a big gap. We're out here. LaWanda told the story. No, Skipp brought up the story when the young football player Danny Farber was killed in a restaurant in Compton, sitting in there with his girlfriend, and the shooter just walked in and just shot him dead. And so they were having a vigil, and someone had brought a pastor unfamiliar with the work, and the pastor wanted to meet the family. Somebody introduced him to the family, and the first thing the pastor said, "Well, was the boy saved?"
Wow.
Not, "How you doing?
Exactly.
Is there anything? Can I
Exactly.
pray for you?
Exactly.
Is there anything my church can offer?" That was the first thing that came out of his mouth.
And you know what? It's funny that you said that, because when my oldest son had got killed, we were looking for a facility that would hold a lot of people, because he had a good relationship with a lot of people, and then plus he had worked over at Cedar Sinai. He had been there for 9 years. And so we were trying to find a large facility. So I called this one church. Well, I didn't call it. I did. I called the church, and then I forwarded it over to my pastor. And he went back and he followed up with the church. And the first thing that the church asked him was, "Well, do he pay his tithes?" And he said, "What him paying his tithes at my church got to do with your church?"
Yeah.
And long as his mother is willing to pay whatever you guys wanted for to hold that service, it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand what you said, that how some pastors come along and just don't, understand it. So
That's the part I don't get.
yeah,
That's the part I don't get. I
not bashing you pastors.
No, we're not pastor
one guy to
bashers,
strike
but-
us down trying to talk about the pastors.
Okay, well, you know what? Scripture talks about clay feet.
Yeah.
Talks about clay feet, and we have to be honest about that. Some of them are just pulpit jockeys.
Yes.
I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth. And that's the true side that the street is looking at. They're
Yeah.
not seeing your pastor. They're seeing the pulpit jockeys that are absent, as the women complain, only show up if there's a camera present, they can get some FaceTime. You see, and that's so offensive.
And that's true.
Yes.
That's
yes,
true.
that's
You
part
have a
of it.
lot of people that does exactly that, where they will show up where the news media is.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And that's the worst thing we need at those times. And is there anything that you want to say? You want to say anything about the kids, what we need to do for them, what you feel like we're missing?
Well, we need to pay attention to our kids, pay attention more to our kids, what they're doing, where they're at. Where I live in Watts. I live in a large complex. The kids are just wandering around, doing who knows what they're doing. We just need to pay attention more. I have a lot of activities for the kids in the building. I have my own foundation, the Daniel and Alex Memorial Foundation. So I started off in my building, 2012, because I couldn't leave the building. So I was like, okay, there's a lot of kids here. I'm going to try to save, these kids. The parents never participated. They needed more participation. I talked to some parents. Oh, we're going to have a softball game. Like, come out and support your kid. Oh, no, I see them all day. What's going on? We need to pay attention to our children.
Yeah.
And I have a 17-year-old, but I still focus on the little kids, because it starts off when you're 5, 6.
Yeah, it does.
Because
it really does.
For me, once you're 12, you're not going to listen to me no more.
No.
You're not.
No.
I had an incident at the park I was telling Barbara about the other day. I took my grandkids after church to a park in the neighborhood. We sat down, we had pizza. So my grandkids wanted to go swing. So there was these little kids hanging out right there, and they were rolling a blunt. And I'm just like, my friend's like, oh, I'm going to go tell them something. I'm like, no, let's just, see what happens. And so the kids are playing on the swings. So the little girl tends to light it. And then I get up and I tell her, excuse me, don't smoke that in front of my grandkids. She's like, oh, I'm doing something. I didn't know what she meant. I didn't know what it was. I don't know what you're talking about, but just don't light that in front of the kids. And there was another little boy. He looked like he was 9, but I'm going to give him 12.
Okay.
Talking about this gang, that gang, this. And I was just like, if I didn't have my grandkids here, I would have talked to them.
Yeah.
But You know, it has to stop. We need to pay attention to those kids, you know.
That's when that 12-year-old needs the 18-year-old to sit him down and teach him some respect. And I just want to tell you, I've had them curse me out on the corner. Yeah, just drop the F-bomb. This old lady and it's like, really? And I'm standing there with their male leadership. It's the male leadership that was with them that put them in check. There was nothing I could say that was going to get any attention or any consideration out of that child for me. I was just old and needed to shut my and you know, that kind of thing. But that 18-year-old stepped in and made him understand, you know, she's your elder, okay, and you need to respect her.
Yeah, they lost that part. They lost that part right now because us as adults didn't give it to them while they were growing up.
Right. That's
a lot of them became their friend.
Yeah.
And that was one thing, you know, with my children, I took them to church. I did everything as a mother could do with them, you know. I used to threaten them, you know, you got 5 minutes to be ready or I'm leaving you. But they knew that 5 minutes means, I don't care if you got to walk out of here with one shoe on and one shoe off. Yeah. I don't care if you're running out of this house with your pants on and trying to put your shirt on. By the time I get to the car and start up, you better be in the car.
You better be in the car.
But that was the thing, because nowadays a lot of these parents now, they party with their kids. You know, it's no more let me raise my child. It's more or less let me make sure that my child's free.
Well, you know what, and I'm going to blame, and I'm sorry to place blame, but when they took the parental rights away and gave it to the children, that if you hit me, I'm going to call social services and they're going to come and arrest you. Well, that
you hit
put
me,
a
I'm
gag.
going to call the police.
Yeah, I'm going to call the police.
Yeah.
And so we started putting a self-inflicted gag to not get them to where they're going to call in on us. Some mothers like me, I gave them the phone. Because I'm fixing to beat your behind right here, right now. I'm going to beat you when they show up to arrest me. And when they let me go and come back home, if you're here, I'm going to beat you again. You see, so that's the kind of threat I told my kids. But I was serious about that because I know parents that had been called into social services. And one of them, it was over a 15-year-old. And this child... 4 siblings, 5 kids. The mom and dad were killed in a car accident at the same time and left those 5 kids orphaned right at the moment that they died. And so these friends, including this man, got together and each one of them took a child. And he's been raising that boy since he was 3. Well, when he got 15, with the gang influence around him and the peer pressure, he really thought he could take on his father. It's like, you ain't going to tell me. Exactly. And then not only to make it worse, he actually tried to physically confront his dad. His dad's about 6'3", 6'4", something like that. And so when the 15-year-old got up off the floor, he called social services. Okay, and sure enough, they called the dad in, and I told you this story the other day. The dad came in. It's like, well, let me tell you what. In my neighborhood, it's drugs, it's gangs, it's guns, and it's murder. And I'm trying to save him from all of that. But if you think you can do a better job, then you keep him. You keep him. Just keep him right now. Don't send him home. See, because if you send him home, I'm going to still be doing the same things I'm supposed to do as a dad, trying to save his life.
Exactly.
You see, so, you know, fathers have had to be that upfront with that kind of foolishness, where moms would say, oh, my baby, let me just let him do what he wants to do. You see, and so when you were talking about your baby, I was wondering what kind of home life his shooter had. At 16,
exactly,
you're ready to commit murder.
Exactly.
Who raised you, son?
Exactly.
Where was your mom? Did you have a mom? Did you have, what was your home life like? You see, so I always put that in there because so many times they just blame the victim. We give the shooter a pass. Yeah, we give the shooter a pass, and even law enforcement. Well, Was your son hanging out with the wrong crowd?
Exactly.
You see, they come at you like that. Did he have any gang tattoos?
Oh, yeah. No, with my oldest son. That happened with my daughter. When the police was called and they got there, the first thing they said to her was, what gang he belongs to? Mm-hmm. And then she said, my brother was an employee, just like you is. Yeah. My brother worked hard, just like you do.
Just like you do.
You know. And then the guy his demeanor changed once she approached him, you know. All of our people that becomes victims is not into the gangs, you know. They innocent lives that wanted to grow up to be somebody, to do things differently, opposed to just becoming the next victim. Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to be the victim.
Nobody
wants to be the victim. And the truth is, only 5%, if it's even 5%, more like 2-3%, are actually killers. Most of them are gang members out of affiliation, neighborhood thing, brotherhood, fellowship kind of stuff. But they're not trying to go and kill anybody. But you still have that percentage, as in the case of yours, that they're doing it for their own reasons. And in the case of Tevin Price, that local gang, and there are several in that area, none of them signed off on killing Tevin behind some red shoes.
Right.
They were rogues. And the best thing that came out of that was that the neighborhood of gang members and OGs turned their backs on them, told the police, hey, we're not going to interfere.
Exactly.
Go do what you have to do. And show you how dirty it can be on the side of the shooter. His family got him to Texas, got him out of the state of California and got him to Texas. And LAPD put a task force together and went to Texas and brought him back. Okay? And the sad reality about that story, Jennifer tells it, that day her son was killed, the woman that was in the store with these knuckleheads tried to threaten her.
Wow.
Tried to get all after Jennifer and call her a snitch. And it's like, oh, hell no. You just killed my son and you coming after me?
Me a snitch, yeah.
Okay, and bless Jennifer's heart, in the moment of that, not realizing that her baby was mortally wounded, her natural response was to chase the shooter. And she got close enough to him to stab him in the back. And I celebrated that. I celebrated that, yeah. He went away knowing that he had been touched by Tevin's family, by his mother. I wasn't mad at her for that. I'm just sorry it wasn't a mortal wound. I'm sorry that that guy's family thought that he was so good that they wanted him to escape his consequences and send him to Texas. You see, so we have that kind of collusion among the cowards. Somebody is covering for them.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part to it, is because somebody knows. And they allow that person to sleep every night in their home. They allow that person to come and go freely like it's nothing.
Like it's nothing.
Like what they did, that person's life wasn't valuable. Right. And it was. Right. All of our children.
Yeah.
Yes.
All of our children. Yeah. Had a value. I'm pretty sure my 30-year-old son, his thought was, I'm going to work tomorrow. And we had to call the work tomorrow and say, fortunately, DeAndre will not be returning.
Yeah.
We had to call the work and tell them, I'm sorry to inform you, but DeAndre would not be returning. And he had plans to go to work the next day.
At 30 years old, working in a job that he had, I know he did.
And loved. He was sitting at home, and his thing was, I'm just for to lay down and relax, because I got to get ready for work tomorrow. Not knowing what was lying ahead of him, that he wasn't even going to make it to work the next day.
And, nobody goes out expecting not to get home. Nobody goes out. Innocent people don't go out expecting that there's some murder around the corner waiting to take my life. And your sons, both of them, doing things the right way, had every right to believe that they had a promising future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think I remember Frances was telling me her son was at the bus stop trying to get home. Victim. You know, and that's a parent's worst fears, is to get that phone call saying your child has been shot.
Yeah. Yes.
Your child has been shot.
It is.
Because then your thought is, where at? You're running around trying to get to where they is, and everything. It's sad.
Yeah. First thing is disbelief.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. It's like, no, you got the wrong number.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I know you're not calling me, telling me this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember with Divine, my sister. She was on her way to work. Somebody called her and said he had just got shot. She called me and said, they just called and said, Poo-Poo just got shot. And I said, what?
What?
And at the same time, my house phone was ringing, telling my oldest son, your brother just got shot. So he running one way, I'm running the other way, trying to get to him. You know, sad.
At 15, who would expect the phone to ring and tell you some stuff like that?
And this broad daylight.
Right.
This ain't no 2 and 3 in the morning. This ain't no 12 and 1 o'clock in the morning, no 11 and 10 at night. This is broad daylight.
Yeah.
Divine lost his life at 3:15 in the afternoon on a Thursday. DeAndre lost his life at 6:30 on a Sunday evening. Broad daylight in the summer.
That's so crazy.
And that's another thing, too. We got to pay attention because all the kids are running free now. It's summertime. Kids are out of school. I think this probably was the last batch of kids that's coming out of school this week.
Yeah.
And everybody is out.
Well,
now what?
You know what? Twin, Kevin Orange, and he's been a friend, a member of Ceasefire for a long time, as long as I have been as well. And Twin is called Twin because he had a twin brother. All right, a rare thing in the black community, but they were twins. And Twin and his brother were at a vigil that night when somebody came up and killed his twin and killed his nephew the same night, same place, same night. And so Twin took a different approach instead of the vengeance, because he had talked to his brother before he was killed. They had come to a new understanding and things were going to change, and he got taken out, and his nephew the same night, and right in front of him. Right in front of him, and they're they're memorializing somebody that's been killed. When somebody comes up in that crowd, kills his twin brother and his nephew too. It's like all kinds of anger should be in him, but he's like you. He's found a different direction to channel that, and it's to find a way to save the next generation. Well, they had, Westmont was labeled Murder Row or Death Alley or something by the LA Times a couple of years ago, and they had a community event out at Southwest College last Saturday where they were just so proud to tell you that not only has the Westmont community changing because of the work they're doing, they've only had one murder this year. One murder. When it was called Death Row or Killer Alley, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was such a damnable thing for them to be labeled as Murder Alley, that nobody was safe over there. And to hear the change that men like him are making, one death is one too many, but when you think about how many it was last year,
right, exactly.
That was an excellent report, and they were so happy to say that. And it's because of men like Twin and the other ex-offenders, ex-gang members that were part of the problem, now coming back trying to be part of the solution.
Right.
So this is why we honor them and so appreciate Skipp, because if you want reentry, if you want recovery, there should be places, for you to receive that. If you don't want to change, stay in lockup.
Exactly. Well, I just want to share this before we close out.
Cool.
Assembly Mike Gibson is having a call to action on July 13th on the corner of Manchester and Vermont. And what he's calling for, and I'm going to put that call out with it, for all the mothers.
Because that'll be
all the mothers. Not saying that anybody is included, but I'm going to say especially the mothers, that if you have a pair of shoes that belong to your child that was murdered, come out with that pair of shoes, because the call is, where are they? Where are they? And we're going to set all the shoes out. We're going to block that intersection off, and we're going to set all the shoes out. And it's going to be a sight to see.
Yes.
This is really going to be a sight to see all these shoes laying out that belongs to people that have become a victim to gun violence.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
And that's July 13th at 6 p.m. on the corner of Manchester and Vermont.
All right. Well, we'll have reminders before then, and then share whatever you post on Facebook. But I do want to thank Mike Gibson.
Yes.
Senator, Assemblyman, I can't remember. He's been in Assembly now, because I've known him for a very long time, and in his political arena, he's always had his foot in this door, always trying to make himself available, always trying to be present. And so he's one of the few elected people that I see consistently. The rest of them don't know him. Don't see him. So, we are out of time, and I'm so surprised because that went so fast. It went so fast, so hard to have this conversation, and just thank you for your courage to come and talk about your baby and to share some love. Share some love with us, because you have to know it's a special sisterhood. And husbands and fathers, as we want to wish you a happy Father's Day this weekend, we want you to know that your mothers are hurting, and we need you to come help us save our own children. If you don't mind, save our babies. So God bless you once again. Thank you for listening to Gang Talk, and we'll be back next week.